Hello, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, and wherever you are in this wide, wonderful, beautiful world that we live in, you're very welcome to the Global Sales Leader podcast. I am your host, Jason Cooper. I'm the sales relationship coach. I think everything in sales is all about that relationship. It's all about connecting with that other person. Once you build up that rapport, that respect, and that longevity of that relationship, I think it's absolutely key. There's lots of other steps that you can have, but it's the first and foremost step is to get people to resonate with you and to like you, trust you, and build that long-term trust and relationship. But this podcast is all about sales leaders, people that have slightly different points of view, something that and people that employ brilliant and intriguing strategies with great effect. And today, my guest, Ken Lundin, if I got your surname correctly, and you're very, very welcome to my podcast.
Well, thank you, Jason. I am absolutely fired up to be here. And I'll tell you one thing that's interesting. We always say the best communicators win the best deals. So couldn't believe more wholeheartedly that the relationship matters.
Brilliant stuff. Right, I'm going to give you a little bit of a synopsis about yourself. Founder of Ken Lundin Associates and creator of the Sales Alpha Roadmap. Found his mission while standing in front of the lawn in Atlanta in 2011 when he learned from the people who had purchased it that the house was sold by the bank. With his business, the last 6 years of life went up in smoke. He took mid-level sales position and in the course of 2 years offered 2 promotions, attaining from the role of senior vice president of sales. Within 2 years, I'm reading far quicker than my mouth is going here, so bear with me. It's unique perpetuate and thriving during difficult times. And over the last 18 months, we've had some extreme difficult times. 2008, again, extreme times. And then I think it's 2000, we had some other extreme times. So, we've all been through that roller coaster ride where it's been great, wonderful, and it drops. And the whole world seems like it's moved and shaken. So, look, Ken, you're very welcome. Look, I'm going to leave the rest for you to answer. What I'd like to understand is the sort of the anchor points along the way to where you are now, and what sort of made you to get to where you are now.
Yeah, and I'll answer that briefly because I'm sure there's a lot of other stuff that they want to hear than Ken's biography. But what we can talk about is this. One of the really significant moments was 2011 in the United States. We went through that 8-9 period, and I had a business back then and had ended up going through some stuff and ended up losing my house. And the bank had miscommunicated with me. So when I answered the door that particular day, I had my 12-year-old on my hip.
Oh no!
And so I'm standing in the door. We got Christmas, blow up things in the front yard. And the guy looks really confused, and he's like, "We just bought your house in an auction." So we were given 3 weeks to move out of the house and had to be out by January 1st. So I've talked about it plenty, so that I can tell you all about it, but I don't want to bore your audience with all those details. But that was a pivotal moment for me, because what it did is it said the following. It said, man, I don't want anyone else to go through this. And so what can I do to contribute to society in a way that I can help give entrepreneurs the best chance? Our clients pay me to see around corners because I truly have been through the risk, right? I've taken the risk and I've gotten punched in the face pretty hard for it. So that's a pivotal moment. And then as we move forward, we've done everything we can to build our systems to help our clients understand that sales traction is what gives you options. It's what gives you corporate valuation. And ultimately, it's the thing that you must never take your eye off.
And it's probably good that you've been through that roller coaster ride as well, because you got to show your audience a bit of vulnerability. Like, if you've had people turn up your house and they're going to move in 3 weeks' time, your receptors in your head is going, shit, what am I going to do? The fight, flight, or freeze system in our head is going, I have to fight, I have to go, I have to do something. And that's a really good, I'd say it's it's a good thing in retrospect that probably happened. At the time, you was probably going, shit, this is not good. What am I going to do? But it's probably giving you so much more armor, so many more sort of wounds to you, which has probably helped you learn and grow. And, you know, for people to like and trust and respect people like yourself, you need to have gone through that rather than gone through Harvard and you're sparkly clean and shiny and you're all. Sometimes all that bullshit doesn't really matter. But as long as you've been through the war, literally through the war, then you can help and advise people. And then you have that sixth sense to actually get those receptors up and help and guide people. So what is the main thing that you do right now?
Yeah, I mean, right now, so we've got a fantastic consulting agency, and so Ken Lundin Associates, and we're in the process of launching RevHeat, which will be our marketing team. So we've essentially believed there are 3 pillars to corporate growth, and we think you have to combine marketing with technology and sales systems. And by being able to put all of those under one roof, we're bringing an ability where marketing can't blame sales for things and sales can't blame marketing, and we can truly improve the effectiveness of our client base. So if it has anything to do with revenue, that's the side of the house that we play on, is helping companies create systematic and predictable growth.
Awesome. And look, there's a great synergy now. I know with the likes of the companies like HubSpot, the marketing and sales work together in one unit, as opposed to back in the day, as we will probably remember growing up, sales would be over there, marketing would be over there, accounts would be over there. They'll all be blaming each other because the marketing didn't go well or the sales has gone well, and they're all blaming each other. So it's good to have that synergy and that collaborative approach now. How well does it work, and what sort of processes do you work in the way that you operate?
Well, the way we approach it, we're looking at our clients' goals. We work with a lot of companies that are private equity or venture capital backed. And then we work with a variety of other companies all the way up to, billion-dollar publicly traded companies. And so based on their goals, what we tend to do differently is we assess and we decide, hey, how we're going to engage with a client is where they need help in their funnel. The old traditional pipeline. Do you need top of funnel more? Do you need middle? Or do you need the bottom of the funnel help? Because each one of those things require that marketing have a certain aspect and support in it, but also, are your sales systems set up? Or is your team ready to go? Are they converting? And I would argue that even with, and we're a HubSpot partner, but I would even argue though that it's more than the technology stack, because I think a big problem with business in the world today is we hide behind our technology. Yeah, and we assume just because it says it's going to do it, it's going to work it. And I can tell you, we use tech components from companies that are fantastic, where the sales and marketing, because they were originally geared as a marketing technology or a sales technology, that they don't intertwine. And so you have to have an ability to get past kind of what we call the black data to figure out, are we doing the things we need to do? It's not simply better just to get more leads. Because sales, what do they say? Oh, those leads suck, right? And then what's marketing say? We downloaded 1,000 email addresses where people opted in last week. And you're like, sales is like, those leads suck. You're like, you run into this kind of thing. So yeah, I think when you look at how to grow a company, really it's like, if you have challenges going on, it's more like you have a car with 4 flat tires. You can choose to address one and inflate it to the proper, pounds per square inch of air, but it's still going to be a really rough ride if you're not trying to address the other 3 tires in the vehicle.
So when you go into a company, would you address all of these issues and challenges? Because you're absolutely right. People nowadays do hide behind technology. They hide behind emails. They hide behind. I think the technology is there to help us. And it does make things a lot easier. I know when I was younger, we just had a big Rolodex and yellow pages and go, off you go. And you go, oh, what do we do? And you have to go out and hammer the streets and pick up the phone and do that. So, it's there to help us. And it should give you more insights about the companies. And then you pick up the phone and then you communicate. So what is your natural process when you jump into a company and you see they're great on paper, but when you deep dive into them to get a proper evaluation, what do you actually get? I'm intrigued.
Yeah, just really you have to go and you have to look at where they are in their growth cycle and what they're trying to accomplish. And so often we see it we've had companies go from 100 to 200 million in 2 years, right? So we've had clients who have made that growth. We've had clients who have gone from 2 to 20 million. We've had clients who have been really, really fast growers. And in every case when we've entered, no matter what the revenue cycle is, essentially, there's a couple things that are usually going on. So one is sales and marketing messaging are different, and there's a friction between the two entities. Yeah. And so that's first, right? Second is they don't work on their sales process. The fundamental process, and we worked with a company who does $150 billion in revenue and has hundreds of B2B sellers in the United States. And they had no formal sales process for their sellers to sell. So what I'm saying is the difference between the smaller companies and the super big ones really most often isn't the problem they're facing. It's the magnitude of the fix. And so typically what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to look for where's the highest level of ROI we can provide for a client early. And oftentimes it depends on kind of what opportunity flows and total deal creation they're having. They got a decent amount of opportunities coming in. We're going to work on the sales system. We have clients who've gone from a 12% to a 32% close rate. So that's triple the revenue almost with no new leads, right? But on the other hand, if they need the front end cycle, well, then we're going to look at where do they need that. So I think our ability as leadership to talk about the top of the funnel, the middle of the funnel, and the bottom of the funnel, and properly allocate how you've got to tie marketing sales together in each is the significant differentiator on how we're able to be successful.
So do you go in and have a look at the leadership and the leaders within the organization? Because nowadays, I've done a lot of research into this, that a leader now has to have so many different styles of tools in there. They need to be a great coach. Yeah. They need to have empathy. They need to lead from the back, but also listen and understand from everyone else what the hell is going on in the organization. And ideas don't necessarily come from them, but they're there to motivate and inspire and give them all everything else. But it's also to really understand and sit into the shoes of the salespeople as well, and to sit in all seats, but also to just show a little bit of trust in them, but not micromanage them. That, like I said, a lot of things. But so I'm always interested in finding out different processes and how you would work. Like, I'm not going to say what's the secret because there's so much BS out there. We're saying, this is the 7 secrets of success, which is a little bit bullshit.
There are no hacks.
No, there are no hacks. So what is the process that you would use just so we can feed forward to the listeners and so people can learn and grow with what you do?
Yeah, first thing is you were talking, like I saw a unicorn flutter across our screen.
A lot of those.
Because that's what you were describing was the unicorn leader.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with aspiring to be able to fly as a white horse.
Yeah.
But most leadership isn't that's not their natural proclivity. Right. And so what we think is that 70 to 75% of the success of the revenue organization comes down to frameworks and process. And so what I mean by frameworks is it doesn't, a lot of times people will change that to say scripts, like phone scripts. Well, no, but we need to have a basic boilerplate people can follow so our messaging is on point with what's going to matter to the persona. We'll talk about what does frameworks mean. Well, from a leadership perspective, if you're not having purposeful and intentional meetings to discuss, say, pipeline, then say to discuss personal development, and then discuss skills development, well, I'm telling you right now that you're missing the most important stuff. So when we go in and look at leadership, we say, hey, Jason, regardless of whether or not you're the world's greatest leader or not, because here's the truth, right? Like only 13% of sales managers are actually really getting training. Yeah. And they came up in the Peter principle, right? They were a really good sales individual contributor. And now, hey, go lead a team.
Yeah.
And you're like, so we've got to take it on ourselves. That's where guys like you and I come in our teams, because we have to be able to help them with that. So we can put a framework in place, because if you put that framework in place, so people go, oh, that makes it so hard. It takes my individuality out of everything that we're doing. No, it doesn't actually. It allows you, because you know the specific path that you're traveling, to be fully intentional and present in every single moment.
Yep.
And so therefore you can be empathetic. You can actually get into somebody's personal life. You can actually understand their goals in their life. And that is just so important here in this virtual world. Yeah. Because I'm here to challenge everybody. And I'm going to tell you this right now. All the statistics right now that they're saying, people care less about culture because they all want to stay at home and work. And now all of a sudden, the thing you built your company on, which was a fantastic culture of people getting around the water cooler, no longer matters to them.
Yep.
So how are you going to replace that in a manner that's going to keep your company consistent to make sure that you have a place people want to work, want to stay to work, and want to do their best work?
So a question is, while I'm thinking of it, because it came up this morning, is this whole last 18 months has been a bit of a screw up. So taking that point of the new sales manager that's been in there, normally what would have happened is the sales leader or whoever it might have been would have been maybe helping and coaching that person to get up to speed and engage with their team and whatever else. So how has that shifted? Oh. And what new principles are there in place to help people get what they want going up to the next level?
Yeah, so for those of you who might get to watch this video, you saw me start looking around as Jason was asking that question, because what I need is a soapbox.
Okay,
because this is, ready? Here we go, and I'll try to keep it short. The pandemic and the lack of management and leadership has allowed sales to get lazy.
Yeah.
We are not looking for a way to differentiate. We are not looking for a way to connect with people. Sales management doesn't know how to manage it. People are now working and they're going, oh, at 3 o'clock, I got to go get my kid. And at 9 o'clock, I had to get my kid. And we're not demanding they be any more efficient in the middle. Right? Because salespeople show up at sales calls. And they show up at a sales call with their video off on Zoom or on some video platform. Let me get this straight. Exaggeration. But in the old days, would you have walked into a boardroom with a ski mask on? Because that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like everybody wants to talk about how this virtual world, buyers have changed and how it's hard to sell. My argument is nothing's changed. We have companies that we've taken from negative 2 million to over 30 million to get them to a $30 million sale in 3.5 years. They've sold virtually the entire time, and that was pre-pandemic. The only thing's changed is that us as sales management, leadership, and salespeople have not demanded that we give the respect to our prospects and customers they deserve by showing up prepared, intentional, curious, and empathetic.
Yeah, I totally concur. And I think that big curiosity is really understanding the other person and where they actually are and their needs and their environment. That's why when we first started the conversation, like we find out where you are and where I am in relation to space. And, it's one of the first things that you do just so you can really understand who you actually are, what you do. And then you go into the challenge of the opportunities and everything else that you do when you're on a sales call. That's really quite fascinating. My brain goes all over the place when I do these podcasts.
Let's go anywhere you want.
Which is also good because when we were talking beforehand, I was really fascinated because I went to Silicon Valley about 5 years ago and I was working alongside a piece of technology. What you see in people, founder members that pitch, that just goes, they've got it, or nah. Or what is it that because presentation skills are like, you can be trained and you can go to a presentation school and do the training, but there's got to be something else that is in there. So for all of these sales people out there that want to learn how to really push yourself out into the extraordinary and pitch in front of a VC company like yourself or whatever it might be, what are the things that you look for?
Wow, here's the good news. Ready? If you're interested in taking a company and getting money, you need to mark this point in the podcast because I'm going to give you the gold.
Okay.
Okay. Here's the deal. The number one thing that you need to understand, you need to treat them like any other prospect or customer. And the problem you're going to have with doing that is that you stink at it right now. Most people do not truly understand the problems they solve at a business and a personal level for their personas and their ideal client profiles, because they're still preaching that some feature, that a better report is going to change my life. Right? And so the thing that will tell me that you get it, and the thing that will tell investors that you get it, is this. Do you get what I need out of you? Do you understand how you can make my job as an investor easier? I don't want to, here's the deal. We're going to assume, Jason, you and I talked about this, and you even said this. The investors in that pitch moment assume the product works.
Yep.
They're going to do a technical due diligence once they figure out whether or not you're worth the time, because that costs them money.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got to be able to go into this and go, I know you as an investor think that this is the way to expand multiples. Like, a really great trick to doing that is go get a first right of refusal on a competitor or products that go help you go horizontal, that sell to the exact same client base, and walk in and go, not only is my stuff awesome, but I know that your goal is to expand returns for your investors and to do that with as little risk as possible, but you're willing to take the risk. So what I did is I have a first right of refusal on these two things. I've done your job for you. You want to buy? Right? And there's ways like that we can really look at it. So I think when you talk about it, you've got to think of, like, when you build your company, think about it this way. You have three constituents. You have your customers, right? You have your employees. And whether or not you ever want to take growth capital or not, build it like you may have investors.
Awesome. So once you do that process and you do your due diligence, then what happens next? Because I'm intrigued.
Well, yeah, it's you understanding your due diligence, your personas, your ICPs, et cetera, right? It's you understanding what that particular venture capital, private equity company is actually investing in. But then the other thing you have to understand is this. So here's where you're wrong. Not you, Jason, but you in general.
Not me.
Right? Here's the deal. Here's the number one mistake that people make. The number one mistake you make in your pitch and in your idea of what your valuation of your company should be. And the reason is that VC generally invests, and private equity generally invests, in a technical founder. They want somebody who understands the inner workings of the product, right? That's who they want. But here's what's interesting. That isn't what creates valuation, right? Innovation does not create valuation. Sales traction creates valuation. Innovation can actually harm it.
Yeah, we were talking just before this, and we were talking about a book that I'm reading at the moment, and they said exactly the same as that. Like, technology is there to help us, but you also need the traction, and you also need the customers behind you that is building those relationships that are helping and giving you some money in the bank. That is really awesome. So tell me this. When you have a look at a founder member, what shows success from them? What are the attributes, the way that they, is it the language that they use? Is it the presentation, or do they have something slightly different?
I think it's your ability to speak to the true product market fit, right? If you can speak to product market fit and you actually have people who are willing to pay for that based on the messaging you have, and you have a consistency where you understand the conversion of your pipeline. And here's the problem, guys. So guys and gals, so understand this. If you walk into any kind of pitch for money, whether you're going to with venture capital, Series A, Series B, whatever it looks like, if you walk in and you can't speak to your sales pipeline, your conversion tactics, and the total number of people who come through the top of the funnel and end at the bottom, you will give up more equity for the same dollars than you will if you can walk in and have that conversation. You cannot go into those being sales illiterate. That's the thing that's missed. And what we don't understand is that costs massive money. Let's say you're successful, but instead you wanted $5 million. But instead of giving up 25%, you had to give up 40% because you couldn't speak to the sales traction. Because you couldn't speak to, this is how our funnel converts, and if you give me money, I'm going to take that and pour gas on my fire and I'm going to print cash. Because think about what we're talking about here. We're talking about numbers, right? Which I know is not what any technical founder wants to hear. But what is a business acquisition? It's simply a discounted cash flow purchase, right? They're buying the future cash flow and equity valuation. So it is about showing that type of valuation going forward.
So it's showing them the future and how the future might look and feel, which is fundamentally what sales is, really. It's creating something that's not quite there yet. We're seeing where we are now. And once we have this service, product, money, whatever else installed, you're going to make your life a lot easier. And it's going to create more time, more money for you, or it's going to do something to make the world a slightly better place, or make their world a better place, or what sounds like a Michael Jackson song I'm just about to go into there, but it's that sort of thing. So what are the key attributes of success that you've seen, even in your work in life, or you've seen in others? Because I know from what I've seen, there's I don't know, there's just some, everyone says it, but there's a continuing theme. But I want to see it from your point of view so the listeners can understand.
Yeah, so let me put one thing on the previous conversation, then I'll come back and tie that in. Understand your job in that pitch is to find the investor's potential latent pain. What is going to be wrong? Be honest with what's going on and tell them how you're going to fix it. Show them this is the path to the valuation and this is why I need the money. So just kind of cap that. That's sales, right? That's communication. That's the latent pain, the thing. So be honest. So that's one. Two is, now you say, what do you see when you see successful people? When I see, there's a few things, because I've been unsuccessful as well. Okay. And I just, because, when you talk about when I filed bankruptcy, lost my company and lost my house over 10 years ago, I will tell you this, it wasn't just I lost it and that was the bottom. That was the beginning of the bottom for me, which took another 2.5 years. Right. And so you kind of come through that. And through that, I learned some lessons. And I think I've seen these in many, many other leaders who are very solid. And so I try to emulate what others have done that's been successful. So one of them is they're very, very cautious about where they push their emotional energy. Right. So the first thing is you can get more of an even keel. I can be super excited about my product, but as an example, if I need Jason to change his behavior to be happy, and that's how I set my life up, I'll never be happy.
Yeah.
Right. So we're very, very cognizant of where our emotional energy goes. Second is, to that end, we focus on the things that we can control. Right. I can't control what the world economy is going to do over the course of the next 18 months. I can control the systems, frameworks, and processes that I put into my company to withstand different economic environments. Right. So to move into the things I control. Third, they're not afraid of failure, and they view failure very differently than most. We'll use words like that failed, but we fail quick and we pivot fast. And so when we see fail, it's actually an actionable attribute instead of a designation of who we are as a person. And so I think if I were to say kind of what are kind of 3 core characteristics that I see in leadership that really, really positions themselves well. And I can think of one of our CEOs who's in the process of a couple $100 million transaction for his company who actually emulates those core beliefs. And so I think those are some of the things I would do if I were looking to be a stronger leader.
Awesome. I like that. Do you use Lean, Stigma, Black Belt?
I don't think I'm smart enough.
I'm just curious because a few of my friends use that process, and they use a lean process, and it sounds very similar to what you're doing, actually.
I don't know that it might be. The honest truth is that's one area where I probably need to put a little more time in my world. I like to say we're incredibly agile. We launch, say as an example, as we launch new products and services in the business, we launch them with sales, and here's another great attribute. You launch them with sales and marketing first and build them when you get a buyer.
Yeah.
Right. And that's that's a lot of successful companies. They build their product set based on the feedback they receive from their customers. And so we work on the sales messaging, the problems we're solving, and then we have it set up so we can build the product and execute on it fast, but we don't spend the time, the money, or the resources on the back end. So for lack of vocabulary, I'd say we're at least agile, if not doing some of the other stuff that I don't quite understand.
No, I've got the top end knowledge of it, but it takes a lot of time and effort in learning and doing that. But when you want to get on the job, it sounds like you're doing a lot of that.
Yeah.
So the question I was going to ask actually is, if you were interviewing you, what sort of questions would you ask yourself, Ken?
You didn't tell me that was going to be a question. That's rough. The questions that I would typically ask me would be things around, how do you pivot from a low performing sales growth organization into a high performing sales growth organization? Because I tend to see that's where a vast majority, like if you look at just the United States, more than 95% of companies are under $50 million. And when you think about that, there are a lot of them that have some success. They get to 2 to 5 to 10 million, and then they just hit this plateau. And so there's a reason that's happening. When it comes down to some of those reasons, some of those things come back to what we talked about from pure leadership, right? You need to assess. We see, are you a helicopter leader, right? So are you dropping in, stirring everything up with the propeller wash, and then flying out? And because you do it so often and have such bad follow through, your team never changes anything. So I think that's kind of one thing you got to look at if you're struggling with your growth mechanisms. Second is, if you haven't over the last 18 months pivoted your messaging to meet what is happening in today's world, then you've missed a massive opportunity. It's not gone, and you can still get to it. But, I use 9/11 as an example often, right? There were things that came out of that horrible event here in the United States that came out of 9/11, and there was a lot of flurry around changes that were happening. Fast forward 5 years, 10 years, right? They're a much smaller version of those that lasted forever.
Yeah.
What are those things? Will consumers and clients, are they more interested in safety truly? How does your brand resonate with them? Have their ideas, if you used to sell to somebody in an office and now it's a completely remote workforce, how are you changing your messaging? So I would say, from a how do you change, those are a couple things that really, really get in the way of going from a kind of a revenue that's just kind of chilling to going to something that can actually get in a growth framework. And the last thing, which always seems to be missing in those organizations, is a really well-defined buyer-centric sales process where we find ways to create value for the buyer along the entire journey. And so I'd say, that covers some of the things that would help you decide, do I have the ability to go from the lower growth to a higher growth organization?
Wow, I'm fascinated by that, and I'm fascinated by what you do, because you're one of the first people that I've had in on this conversation in this vertical, in this area. I've had a guy that exited out from Constant Contact, made a little bit of cash, but not from your point of view as well. So that's also intriguing from how you evaluate a company and jump in there and hopefully turn them around from where they were to making gross profits and big margins or better margins by having your team in there, just work with them. Now, I find that really fascinating, because what I can learn and what I can grow from yourself is phenomenal. And this is all about learning. I find, like doing these podcasts, I'm sure you know yourself, is you learn and grow by everyone that you speak to. So thank you so much for that. Just one last question. What would you say is your proudest achievement along the way and your journey to date?
Learning how to be human and empathetic again. And I know that sounds silly because most people want to say it's this, that, or the other thing. And can I give you two? So one is personal, like going through that thing I went through in 2011. I spent 2.5 years in a miserable state. I was eating ice cream every night and drinking beer every night. And I thought they were the two major food groups. So coming through that by taking control of how I looked at and viewed my life, to be able to remount to success. My ex-wife at the time said, "You don't want to own a business again, do you?" And my comment to her at the time was, it would be an incredibly expensive lesson not to apply. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, in what we do, we change lives. So, I have a sales rep, and there's a lot of these stories, and not even equity, but just talk about the individual rep. I have a sales rep we've been working with for about 4 years, who came to us, who was 9 months in with his organization. He had sold nothing. He was making $60,000 a year. His wife and his family were living in a school district that wasn't fantastic. It wasn't the thing he wanted for them, but he didn't even know what he wanted for them because he'd never seen more. He'd never made more than $100,000. So we finished that year, and we got him to about $150,000. It was the highest year he'd ever had. The following year, we took him up to over $350,000, and there's a potential for him to make $500,000. Now, why does that matter so much to me? It's not that it matters. It's not that the money matters, but it shows you what's absolutely there if you'll apply yourself. Because what it did for him and his family, they moved to a nicer school district.
Yeah.
They moved to a nicer house. His wife, by their choice, was able to stay home with their 3 children. They've been able to do and experience things that he never could have had we not had the opportunity to work together.
Yeah.
And so whether it's that or owners, that's the thing that gives me and my team joy.
Yeah, that's hugely. I love those stories. That's taken you from. It's like the rags to riches, but you've been helping them along that journey to invest in them, but also to trust in them as well. That they got potential, but you just had to nurture them in the right way to get them to where they need to be going, and like connect that to their dream. So that is phenomenal. I like that. That generally gives me a good feeling about that. And obviously yourself, you've obviously trusted in the process. So Ken, how can people find out a lot more about yourself?
Awesome. I appreciate that. So probably, as you'll see on the screen, and for those of you who are watching, the website's kenlundin.com, Lundin. I would tell you, if you want to interact, though, just go to LinkedIn. Look up Ken Lundin. You can see my name on the screen, and you'll see it in the show notes. Go on LinkedIn and invite me to connect, and tell me that you saw me here on the Global Sales Leader Show with Jason Cooper. Do that, and then if you want to have a chat, what we do is we give you a free kind of 30-minute strategic conversation about what's going on in your organization, and I'll make you 2 promises. You'll talk directly to me. You won't talk to anyone on my team, because that's what we'll do, because we respect and really appreciate Jason having us on. And the second thing I promise you, not going to sell you anything. Heck, we don't even know you. So this will be all about you, and it will be 100% centered on what questions you have, and you'll come out of that with something tactical.
Awesome stuff, Ken. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I really do appreciate your time. You've been listening to the Global Sales Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Cooper. If you like this and you like other interesting stories and anecdotes and everything else like that, to give you a gift forward, because it's also about knowledge and how you can apply it to your lives so you grow. And I think this series is all about sharing and growing knowledge and applying it into your own life. So you can reach me at jasoncooper.io. And thank you so much again, Ken.
Appreciate it.